huge fan of bone. It's a traditional thing to use. The bone that one buys these days is generally cow femur, and it's even if you hold a thin bit up, you see you buy for an acoustic guitar saddle to a bright light and look at it, and some bits you'll be able to almost see through, it'll be translucent, and some bits you won't. And that means that the density varies, and it means that you not only get different volumes from each string, you actually get different overtones and sounds. And one of the most common things I've found with bone nuts is if you've got things set up absolutely spot bollock as it should be, sorry, absolutely right as it should be, very often the D string sounds sharp when played on, sorry, the B string sounds sharp when you play a D compared to the D string, and it's because of this overtone characteristics that happens to particularly hit B notes. I don't know why, it must be a characteristic to do with bone. But since Tusk particularly has come along, or the Graphtec variants and various other things that provide an absolutely even bone, an even response, there's a choice. You can do hard sound, warm sound, whatever sound you want comes from the material you use, and you can do your own wee research on that one. So personally I use a fair bit of Tusk and Graphtec, which is much the same material as the Tusk, I understand, but impregnated with Teflon.
Yeah, and just to emphasise again, when we say Tusk, you're not talking about elegant Tusk, you're talking about
TUSQ, it's an artificial ivory.
Yeah, just for the sake of clarifying things, just in case anybody might pick it up before.
Now, why not use ivory, I suppose, as an instant response. We might get to that. Well, indeed, if you've got bits of old antique ivory that have been broken and whatnot, then I suppose there's no reason at all for not using them. Putting discarded old stuff made from old ivory when the elephant's long dead and there's nothing you can do about it is probably better than using or buying exported poached stuff. One can get legal ivory from mammoth tusk, and indeed on one of my guitars, an old mate of mine, I've made the nut from a piece of mammoth tusk, which is very, very old ivory. God knows how many thousand years old ivory. It's absolutely beautiful to carve. It's like carving solidified cream, so wonderful. But quite expensive. The blanks are, I think, about 35 or 40 quid just for the actual blank, and then you're going to make the thing and fit it. And if you've got something lovely and old, and it doesn't really matter to put a bit of fun like that into it, then fine. But generally speaking, the artificial ivory sounds good. It's relatively cheap. It works. So one uses that. Now, where was I with this? Getting this absolutely right is crucial for intonation, but also crucial for the feel of the guitar. The further you've got to press the strings onto the fret, the stiffer the guitar feels. And if you've got a very heavy playing style, you might want it that way, but very few people realistically do. Most people want them to play quite easily. And if you want to stiffen it up, use slightly bigger strings with the nut cut properly. Here's my advice. Right, that's in tune, feels more or less right. So at this point I want to have a quick look and see what the intonation is doing. The intonation, everyone says, what on earth is the intonation? The intonation is making sure that when you play the string on the fretted notes, it's in the right corresponding position to the scale length of the whole thing. The scale length is the distance between the nut and the first string. And the exact halfway point is the 12th fret. Therefore, if you divide the string into two harmonic waves by doing a harmonic on the 12th fret, that note should be the same as the fretted note underneath it. Now for those with sharp ears, one hears that's more or less, but not quite bang on. I personally check this up here on the second harmonic. Now with most normal guitar bridges you have an adjuster screw to be able to move these saddles subtly backwards and forwards to get this sort of thing absolutely right. On this, because you've just got a bunch of positions that are arbitrarily set, you have to live with a certain amount of it being out of tune. The difference between that and that is really, you know, it's close as you like. So I'd say that's quite happy. Perfect. Now, if you want this absolutely right, really, I think you're going to have to use an adjuster, because the difference between this one being in and out is probably half the distance of that little bar. So as you say, this is one of the drawbacks of using a guitar like this.
Yeah.
It's not wildly out, however. It's pretty close. On a normal guitar, I'd go to trouble to get that absolutely right. On an acoustic guitar, you know, very often all you've got is, you know, a bar of a saddle sitting at a funny angle like that to approximate what we're seeing across the whole lot. So as long as the guitar is set up right, particularly at this end, where you do most of the playing, it's less important up this end.
Gotcha.
The intonation up here is far more important if you're playing a lot of lead work up here. Good enough for working. So, we don't have any buzzes anywhere, even when we bend. That's all okay. So the action's about where we want it to be now. And again, everyone says, oh, well, watch how high the action should be, when I say actually about that much. And the bottom line is, if it's higher, it'll be stiffer. If it's too low, it will rattle. Some people have an extremely delicate action with their fingers and like them super low. Well, the answer to super low fretboards is that you do need to have a fretboard that's absolutely pretty much flat. Like, for example, the Ibanez RGs and things, and they're made that way because if you have a slight curve, even such as this, when you bend a string, it's likely to start choking on the fret above as you bend, because it's climbing up the hill over that fret. So it won't necessarily, but it means you're never going to get the action as low without choking on a curved fretboard as you will on a flat one. And you know, once it's set that end and it's fine and it's playing happily and the action's like this all the way up is quite comfortable, you know, that's all you actually need. If it's too low, it'll rattle. If it's too high, take it down. Rocket science is not. The important thing is to make sure that the neck is straight and the nut is cut properly. So there we have it. Now on this one, that's the basic setup done.